Chapter 9 The New Kid. "Are you sure you don't want me to come in with you?" Ellen sat in the car with Corey outside the school. Kids were coming and going in all directions. A snowball hit the car next to them as 3 kids piled out. "No, I'm okay," Corey lied. "Remember to see Mrs. Conley. She'll get you to your first class." Corey got out of the car. That dark feeling was coming over him again. He wanted his parents more right now than he had for weeks. Trying not to make eye contact with anyone, Corey entered the school building and walked down the hall to the guidance office. "I'm Corey Nelson. I need to see Mrs. Conley." "She'll be out in just a minute," said the secretary with a smile. "Why don't you have a seat?" Corey sat down. In the chair next to him was a kid with a ring in his nose and the hair shaved from half his head. Corey thought the kid was trying to look tough. He didn't have the heart to tell him that he looked like an honor student compared to the kids Corey had seen every day on State Street in Madison. "Hey, Corey, come on in," Karen said, poking her head through the waiting room doorway. In her small office, with the door closed, she asked, "Okay, honest answer. Are you nervous?" Corey inhaled deeply. "Just a little." Karen waited. "Well, maybe more than just a little," he admitted. A bell rang. Corey knew what that meant. He would be walking into his first-hour class after it had started. Karen and Corey walked down the long hallway to his math class. After being introduced to Mrs. Barrens, Corey walked into the room. Every student turned to look at him. He wanted to run, but there was no place to go. "Why don't you have a seat here, Corey?" Mrs. Barrens said. Corey sat down at a table with 3 other students. He didn't say a word. Mrs. Barrens handed him a math textbook and then announced to the class, "It's tough to be the new kid in class. My father was in the military, so I know what it's like. So, Corey, I promise I won't make you stand up in front of class and tell us about yourself." The students laughed and then quickly quieted down. "Thanks," Corey said quietly. He knew right away that he'd be safe in this room. "Why don't the rest of you get out your projects?" Mrs. Barrens said as she sat down next to Corey. "Look," she said quietly, "I'm not sure what your math background is, so you'll just have to wing it for this week. We have a quiz each Friday. You'll take this Friday's quiz, but I won't grade it." Then she added as she rose, "Unless you do really well on it." "Sounds fair to me," Corey said. "Hi, I'm Charlene, and this is Holly," said the girl directly across the table from him. "I'm Don, until now, the only guy at this otherwise male-bashing table," said the stocking kid sitting next to Corey. "Are you new here?" he added. "Duh," Charlene said. "What do you think, pinhead? It's March. Have you seen him in school before?" "I just moved here from Madison," Corey said to Don. "You'll like this class," Don said. "This is the first time I've ever done well in math." "This is the first time you could even spell the word math, you bozo," Holly said. "See what I have to put up with?" said Don with a stupid grin. "Okay, folks, let's get to work. You can brainwash Corey later," Mrs. Barrens said sarcastically. Corey watched as the group built bridges out of dry spaghetti and glue. It was a math lesson unlike anything he had ever seen before. Each team of students tried to build the strongest bridge using the fewest materials. He helped as much as he could. The bell rang, and Corey walked to his next class. Along the way, nearly every 7th grader he passed stared at him. The 9th graders didn't notice him, except for one. "Hey, Corey, how's it going?" It was Megan, and from the crowd around her, She was extremely popular. "It's going," Corey said with a smile. When he walked into his science classroom, Mr. Kulex said mechanically, "You must be Corey Nelson." "Yes, sir." "Well, just stand here for a minute. I guess I'll have to find you a seat." Corey stood at the teacher's desk as the other students filed in, staring at the newcomer as if he were some lab animal brought in for dissection. "Hey, you're in this class too?" It was Don. Corey was glad to know somebody in the room. "I see you have already met my good friend Don. Somehow I knew you two would find each other," Mr. Kulex sneered. The bell rang. "Before we begin class, I'd like to introduce a new student. His name is Corey," Mr. Kulex said to the class. "Corey, why don't you tell us all about yourself? I'm sure this class would find that quite interesting." "Nerd," someone said loudly. The class started laughing and didn't stop for 2 minutes. "Well, I see you've gotten the losers all riled up. Thanks a lot. Have a seat next to Don over there," Mr. Kulex grumbled. "I suppose I have to find you a textbook, too." Turning to the class, the teacher said, "Remember, you have your quiz tomorrow. Now pass in yesterday's worksheet as I hand out today's." Corey looked at the worksheet. Matching cell parts to cell names. How many times had he been required to do this exact worksheet? Oh, well, Mr. Kulex walked up to where Corey was seated. "As you know," he began, "we are 3 weeks into the grading period. If you have any hope at all of passing this class, you've got a great deal of catching up to do." Corey didn't say a word. He was too scared to think about it right now, but he was sure that he didn't like this man. He didn't know why yet, but he knew that he didn't like him. The rest of the class period was chaos. As Corey completed the worksheet, most of the other students sat and talked. A textbook and then a folder flew across the room. Mr. Kulex didn't appear to notice. As the bell rang, he shouted, "Your quiz is tomorrow. Not that any of you would care." Walking out the door with the crowd, Corey felt something or someone tugging on his ankle. Losing his balance, he quickly found himself face down on the hallway floor as crowds of students walked by laughing. Getting up, he noticed Mr. Kulex standing in the doorway. He had seen the whole incident and hadn't said a word. Third hour was a study hall for Corey. With no work to do, he signed up to go to the library, thinking it strange how every study hall in every school worked the same way. He walked into the library along with 10 other students and took his turn, signing in on a blue-lined tablet at the desk. Like the others, he instinctively walked to the wall of magazines and grabbed a title that interested him. Bonnie Ossio, the librarian, quickly compared the list of students who signed in with the faces she knew so well. She stopped when she came to Corey's name. Looking across the room, she saw the young boy reading his magazine. That was the first red flag that went up for her. Most of the students who came to the library did so to get out of sitting in a boring study hall. They would take a magazine out of the rack and pretend to read it, or just look at the pictures. This new kid was actually reading. Maybe he just had no one to talk to, and this was his way to get through an awkward situation. As Miss Ossio approached the boy, she was surprised by the title he'd selected. Audubon. Not Car and Driver and not Sports Illustrated. That was the second red flag. "What are you reading?" she asked as she sat down next to him. "It's an article about the value of prairies in the United States and how they have become the most endangered ecosystem," Corey replied. He suddenly realized that he'd given an answer that was too detailed. It was like when someone asked, "How are you?" when they really didn't want to know. Ms. Osseo was impressed. He actually understood what he was reading. The third red flag. "Interesting," she said, introducing herself. "It says here that you are Corey Nelson." "Yeah, this is my first day here." "Well, how's it going so far?" "So far, so good." "You like prairies?" "Yeah, I guess," Corey added. "My dad was a botanist." Something about the way he said "was" made Ms. Osseo not ask any more questions about his father. Corey noticed this and was relieved. For some reason, he felt the need to add, "My mother was into birds." "I'm sure you'll like it here," Ms. Osseo said. "Let me know if there's anything I can do to help." "Thanks," Corey said. Ms. Osseo left Corey sitting at the table and walked straight to the guidance office. "Hey, Karen, are you around?" she shouted, walking past the secretary. "I'm in here, Bonnie." The voice came from one of the small offices down the hallway. "How could anyone tell?" Bonnie said, looking at the piles of file folders that decorated the room. "What can I do for you?" "Got any paperwork on that new kid, Corey Nelson?" "That's Ellen and Ben's new foster child." "Oh, I heard they had a foster child now. I'm happy for them. No one deserves a break more than they do." From the looks of things, Corey could use a few too. She handed Bonnie a file folder and said, "You'd better sit down before you start to read it." The rest of Corey's day went without much trouble. There were a few minor goofs that helped remind him that he was the new kid. At lunch, he didn't have a ticket and had to get one from the office. He got lost on the way to art and came in 10 minutes late. Also, while going to World Cultures, he walked into the wrong room, a 9th grade English class. But PE was the worst. He stepped out of the shower room to find that there were no towels. He also quickly realized that he was the only one to take a shower, which earned him strange looks and stupid grins from the other kids. A boy from his art class explained, "7th graders don't like to take showers here." "Don't you start to stink?" Corey asked. "Well, yeah," replied the other student, as if it were normal to stink. Mr. Taxaday, the PE teacher, threw Corey a towel as the bell rang. "I'll write a pass to get you into homeroom late." Homeroom lasted 15 minutes. He wasn't sure what he should be doing there. The other students just sat around with their coats and backpacks. They were talking so loudly that they couldn't hear the announcements coming over the PA system. Mr. Kulex didn't say a word. Not to him, not to anyone. The bell rang and everyone rushed out. Remembering his earlier pratfall, Corey waited to be the last one out the door. The ride home was the last hurdle of the day. Ellen had driven him to school, but he was taking the bus home. Stepping on the bus, he headed straight for the safety of the seat behind the driver. Before he could sit down, he heard, "Hey, Corey, sit over here." He turned to see Don waving his hand. Corey gratefully took the seat next to Don as the bus started to roll. "You ride the same bus as I do. Cool," Don said. "Where do you live?" Corey was afraid of this question. "I live on Pine Road, down near the Barrens." "Wow, you're out in the sticks. Why did your parents move way out there?" "My parents are dead," Corey said quietly. This was the first time he had actually used those words. "I'm living with foster parents." "I'm sorry," Don said. "My parents are divorced." For the rest of the ride, Don filled Corey in on how things worked at JFK. After 30 minutes of news about which teachers were jerks and which students were going out, the bus stopped in front of Dawn's house. The last 15 minutes of the bus ride seemed to take forever. Finally arriving at the Rain farm, Corey got out. Ponch greeted him enthusiastically as he walked into the house. He thought about his situation. He knew he was safe and well taken care of, but he also knew that this wasn't his home. The darkness was returning. "Hi there, how did it go today?" Ellen asked as Corey walked into the house. "I guess it could have been worse." "Sit down and tell me all about it. Did you get any homework? Did you meet any kids?" Ellen was in rapid-fire mode. "Did you have any trouble with the bus?" Corey let out a quiet laugh. "Slow down. I'll tell you all about it, but I was thinking about walking down to the Barrens before it got dark." "You're going to walk to the Barrens? That's almost 2 miles away. How about if I drive you?" "Well, thanks, but I think I want to walk. Would that be okay?" Corey asked. "Sure. Be back by 6, she said, and then added, "Be careful." The walk to the Barrens gave Corey a chance to clear his head. The sky was still overcast, but the air was warm for March. He wanted to forget everything. The eagle, school, and whatever it was he wasn't being told by Ben and Ellen. As soon as he got to the large sign that marked the beginning of the Barrens, Corey left the road. A deer trail headed toward a stand of trees, so he decided to follow it. Along the way, he studied the tracks in the snow. His mom had always liked tracks. She would say that the tracks could tell a story. Mouse tracks that ended with a few drops of blood and the imprints from a pair of wings were higher drama to her than anything that could be found on TV. It hadn't snowed for a week, so the tracks were all old. When he got to the stand of trees, he sat down on a windfall that was just the right height to serve as a bench. If he were here with his parents, they'd be checking the buds for signs of deer browsing or looking for maple sapsicles. But his parents weren't here. He was all alone, and that was just the way it would have to be from now on. He knew his parents would want him to be strong, but he wasn't strong. He was scared. Logic returned. He would fake it. He'd done it before. He wouldn't let anyone know he was troubled. He'd just keep it to himself. No one would understand anyway. Besides, he wouldn't be here long. He didn't know where he would end up, but he knew this was only temporary. Corey walked quickly home as the sunset faded to darkness. Supper was exactly at 6, and he spent most of the meal trying to chew between questions from Ben and Ellen. He was honest. He said he liked most of his teachers, except Mr. Kulex. He told them about being late for class, walking into the wrong room, and even being tripped in the hall. He didn't mention PE. After supper, he took out the small amount of homework he had. He put a cover on his math book and wrote a summary of an article for World Cultures. As promised, Ellen checked his homework carefully. Spelling was his downfall. 5 spelling errors in a single-page summary. After an hour of TV, Corey said goodnight and went up to his room. This was the toughest time of the day for him. He felt alone, and there was nothing to distract him from thoughts of his parents. He picked up the family picture that had been sitting on his nightstand, looked at it briefly, and turned out the light. The stress of the day gave way to exhaustion, and he fell asleep. The sound of the scream brought Ellen running to Corey's room. Ben followed close behind. By the time she had opened the door, he was sitting up in his bed, crying uncontrollably. Ellen turned on the light and put her arms around the trembling boy. Turning to Ben, she said, "I'll sit with him." Ben nodded and left. "I'm sorry I woke you," Corey said through his tears. Ellen just held him tighter. Short, deep breaths gradually replaced the tears. "I miss them so much," he admitted. "Just try to relax," Ellen said. Corey slowly calmed down. Ellen reached up and turned off the light. "Do you want me to stay for a little while?" "Please," was the quiet response. "When does it stop hurting?" "It never really does," she said. 10 minutes later, Corey was asleep. Ellen closed the door and went back to her room.